Question 1. Strategic planning requires a robust disaster recovery plan, DRP, that is informed by a comprehensive understanding of potential disruptions. Which of the following approaches best supports the development of an effective DRP by ensuring that recovery efforts are aligned with the organization's most critical needs? Option A. Develop recovery plans based on the ease of technical implementation, regardless of the business criticality of the affected functions. Option B. Implement recovery strategies based on the historical frequency of past incidents without considering current threat intelligence. Option C. Focus recovery efforts primarily on the systems and data that are least expensive to restore. Option D. Prioritize recovery efforts based on a detailed assessment of potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their impact on business operations. Correct answer is D. Prioritize recovery efforts based on a detailed assessment of potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their impact on business operations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in disaster recovery planning (DRP), where the initial risk assessment, a foundational element of DRP, is incomplete. The challenge lies in identifying and prioritizing risks without a comprehensive understanding of potential threats and their impact. This can lead to misallocation of resources, inadequate recovery strategies, and ultimately, a failure to meet business continuity objectives when a disaster strikes. The CISM professional must demonstrate the ability to guide the organization through a robust risk assessment process that informs the entire DRP lifecycle. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a thorough risk assessment that identifies potential threats, vulnerabilities, and their potential impact on critical business functions. This assessment should consider various scenarios, including natural disasters, cyber attacks, and human error. By understanding the likelihood and impact of each risk, the organization can prioritize recovery efforts and allocate resources effectively to mitigate the most significant threats. This aligns with best practices in information security management and is implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that mandate risk management and business continuity, such as those that might be referenced in CISM exam preparation materials, which often draw from NIST, ISO 27001, and similar standards that emphasize a risk-based approach to security. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on the cost of recovery without a corresponding assessment of potential business impact is flawed. This fails to acknowledge that the most expensive recovery might be necessary to prevent catastrophic business failure or significant reputational damage. It represents a regulatory and ethical failure by not adequately protecting the organization's assets and stakeholders. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize recovery based on the perceived ease of implementation rather than the criticality of the affected systems or data. This can lead to less important functions being restored first, leaving critical operations vulnerable and potentially causing greater overall disruption. This is a failure in professional judgment and can lead to non-compliance with business continuity requirements. Finally, an approach that relies on historical data alone without considering emerging threats or changes in the business environment is insufficient. The threat landscape is dynamic, and past events may not accurately predict future risks. This can result in a DRP that is outdated and ineffective, leading to potential regulatory non-compliance and ethical breaches related to due diligence. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach DRP by first establishing a comprehensive understanding of the organization's critical assets and business processes. This understanding is then used to conduct a thorough risk assessment, identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities. The results of the risk assessment directly inform the development of recovery strategies, ensuring that resources are allocated to address the most significant risks and that recovery objectives are aligned with business needs. This iterative, risk-driven process is fundamental to effective information security management. Question 2. The efficiency study reveals a significant increase in the number of security incidents reported over the last quarter. Which of the following actions best demonstrates the CISM responsibility for measuring and reporting on information security performance in alignment with U.S. regulatory expectations? Option A. Correlate the increase in incidents with potential root causes. Assess the impact on business operations and compliance, and propose targeted improvements to security controls and processes. Option B. Attribute the rise in incidents primarily to increased external threat actor activity and recommend increased external threat intelligence subscriptions. Option C. Simply report the raw increase in incident numbers to senior management, highlighting that the trend is concerning. Option D. Immediately recommend the procurement of a new, comprehensive security information and event management (CISM) system to address the perceived data overload. The correct answer is A. Correlate the increase in incidents with potential root causes, assess the impact on business operations and compliance, and propose targeted improvements to security controls and processes. Explanation: the efficiency study reveals a significant increase in the number of security incidents reported over the last quarter. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the CISM to move beyond simply acknowledging the data and instead interpret its implications for the organization's security posture and business objectives. The CISM must demonstrate the ability to translate raw performance metrics into actionable insights that inform strategic decision-making and resource allocation, all while adhering to the specific regulatory and legal frameworks governing information security in the United States. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly aligns with the CISM responsibility to measure, monitor, and report on information security performance in a manner that supports business objectives and demonstrates compliance. By correlating the increase in incidents with potential root causes and proposing targeted improvements, the CISM is fulfilling their duty to provide a comprehensive and forward-looking assessment. This proactive stance, focusing on root cause analysis and strategic remediation, is essential for demonstrating due diligence and accountability under U.S. regulatory frameworks such as HIPAA for healthcare data, GLBA for financial data, and NIST cybersecurity framework, which all emphasize risk management and continuous improvement. Ethical considerations also mandate a commitment to protecting sensitive data and informing stakeholders of material risks. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the raw number of incidents without further analysis fails to provide actionable intelligence. This is a regulatory failure as it does not demonstrate a proactive risk management process required by many U.S. laws. Ethically, it falls short of the CISM obligation to provide a complete picture of the security landscape. Another incorrect approach that attributes the increase to external factors without investigating internal controls or processes neglects the organization's responsibility to manage its own security environment. This can lead to non-compliance with regulations that expect organizations to have robust internal controls. Furthermore, an approach that proposes immediate, broad, and unanalyzed technological solutions without understanding the underlying issues is inefficient and potentially wasteful, failing to demonstrate sound financial stewardship and a risk-based approach to security investments, which is implicitly expected under various U.S. compliance regimes. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the context of the data. This involves asking why the numbers are changing, not just what the numbers are. A structured decision-making process would involve 1. Validating the data and its collection methodology. 2. Performing root cause analysis to understand the drivers behind the observed performance. 3. Assessing the business impact of the observed performance. 4. Developing recommendations that are risk-based, cost-effective, and aligned with business objectives. 5. Communicating these findings and recommendations clearly to relevant stakeholders, including senior management and potentially regulatory bodies if required. This systematic approach ensures that performance measurement leads to meaningful improvements and demonstrates a mature security program. Question 3. Process analysis reveals that a newly implemented information security policy regarding data access controls is experiencing significant resistance from several key business units, leading to delays in critical operations. The CISM must address this situation to ensure both security compliance and business continuity. Which of the following actions best addresses this challenge? Option A. Escalate the issue to senior management, recommending the termination of the policy due to its negative impact on productivity, and suggest a less stringent alternative that prioritizes operational speed over granular access control. Option B. Delegate the responsibility of resolving the access control issues to the IT department, instructing them to develop technical workarounds that satisfy the policy's intent without requiring significant changes to current business unit workflows. Option C. Initiate an immediate, strict enforcement of the new policy across all units, coupled with a mandatory retraining session for all affected personnel, and establish a formal exception process for critical operational needs that requires senior management approval. Option D. Suspend the enforcement of the new policy temporarily and revert to the previous access control mechanisms, while a comprehensive review of the policy's operational impact and user feedback is conducted, involving representatives from the affected business units. The correct answer is C. Initiate an immediate, strict enforcement of the new policy across all units, coupled with a mandatory retraining session for all affected personnel, and establish a formal exception process for critical operational needs that requires senior management approval. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in information security management, balancing the need for robust policy enforcement with the practical realities of business operations and user adoption. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that policies, standards, and procedures are not only developed, but also effectively implemented and maintained in a way that is both compliant and operationally feasible. The CISM role requires a strategic approach that considers the organization's risk appetite, business objectives, and the human element of security. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it acknowledges the iterative nature of policy development and implementation. It emphasizes a phased rollout, continuous monitoring, and a feedback mechanism, which are crucial for ensuring that policies are practical, understood, and adhered to. This aligns with the CISM responsibility to establish and maintain an information security program that is integrated with business processes and adaptable to evolving threats and organizational changes. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing data protection and privacy, e.g., GDPR if the jurisdiction were EU, or NIST frameworks if US, mandate that organizations implement appropriate technical and organizational measures, which includes well-defined and enforced policies. Ethical considerations also demand that security measures are proportionate and do not unduly hinder legitimate business activities. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate, strict enforcement without considering user impact or operational feasibility would likely lead to resistance, workarounds, and ultimately, a breakdown in compliance. This could result in regulatory noncompliance, fines, and reputational damage. For instance, a policy that is overly burdensome and lacks adequate training or support would fail to achieve its intended security objectives and could be seen as a failure to implement appropriate measures as required by many regulations. Another incorrect approach that relies on infrequent, ad hoc reviews without a structured process for updates and communication would lead to outdated policies that are no longer relevant to current threats or business practices, thus failing to provide effective security guidance and potentially violating due diligence requirements. A third incorrect approach that delegates policy enforcement entirely to IT without involving business unit management would create a disconnect between security requirements and operational realities, leading to policies that are either ignored or implemented ineffectively, undermining the overall security posture and potentially violating principles of shared responsibility in security. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic process. First, understanding the business context and risk appetite. Second, developing policies that are clear, concise, and aligned with business objectives. Third, planning for implementation with adequate communication, training, and support. Fourth, establishing mechanisms for monitoring compliance and gathering feedback. And finally, iterating on policies and procedures based on performance and changing conditions. This holistic approach ensures that information security policies are effective, sustainable, and contribute to the organization's overall success. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood and high impact for a specific threat related to unauthorized access to sensitive customer data. As the CISM, you need to propose a governance approach to manage this risk. Which of the following actions best aligns with information security governance principles? Option A. Delegate the responsibility for addressing this risk to the Security Operations Center manager, with a directive to implement any necessary technical controls as they deem fit. Option B. Establish a cross-functional steering committee with defined roles and responsibilities to oversee the development and implementation of a comprehensive data access control policy, including regular audits and performance metrics, and secure executive sponsorship for resource allocation. Option C. Immediately deploy a new intrusion detection system, and instruct the IT operations team to configure it to block all suspicious traffic without further policy review or stakeholder consultation. Option D. Recommend a significant reduction in the budget for data security initiatives to free up funds for other business priorities, given the current economic climate. Correct answer is B. Establish a cross-functional steering committee with defined roles and responsibilities to oversee the development and implementation of a comprehensive data access control policy, including regular audits and performance metrics, and secure executive sponsorship for resource allocation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in information security governance, balancing the need for robust security controls with the practical realities of business operations and resource constraints. The risk matrix highlights a significant potential impact and likelihood for a specific threat, demanding a strategic response from the CISM. The professional challenge lies in translating this risk assessment into actionable governance decisions that align with organizational objectives and regulatory requirements, without overreacting or underestimating the threat. Careful judgment is required to select the most effective and efficient approach. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified high-risk area through a structured, risk-based governance process. It involves establishing clear ownership, defining measurable objectives, and allocating appropriate resources, all of which are fundamental to effective information security governance as mandated by frameworks like ISO 27001 and NIST CSF, which are implicitly referenced in CISM certification. This approach ensures that the organization's security posture is proactively managed and that decisions are informed by risk appetite and business strategy. It also aligns with the CISM responsibility to ensure that security initiatives are integrated into the overall business framework. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate technical mitigation, without considering the broader governance implications, fails to establish accountability and long-term sustainability. This could lead to a situation where the technical control is implemented but not maintained, or where it conflicts with other business processes, creating new risks. This approach neglects the governance aspect of ensuring controls are appropriate, effective, and integrated. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction over risk mitigation, despite the high-risk rating, demonstrates a failure to adhere to the organization's stated risk appetite and a disregard for potential regulatory non-compliance and business disruption. This can lead to significant financial and reputational damage if the risk materializes. It also shows a lack of understanding of the CISM fiduciary responsibility to protect organizational assets. A further incorrect approach that defers the decision to a lower-level committee without clear direction or authority bypasses the CISM governance responsibilities. This dilutes accountability and can lead to inconsistent or ineffective decision-making, as the ultimate responsibility for information security governance rests with senior management, guided by the CISM. It fails to demonstrate leadership in establishing a clear governance path for high-risk items. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves 1. Understanding the risk. Thoroughly analyze the risk matrix and understand the potential impact and likelihood. 2. Aligning with business objectives. Determine how the identified risk affects business operations and strategic goals. 3. Evaluating governance options. Consider various approaches to address the risk, focusing on establishing clear ownership, accountability, and resource allocation. 4. Consulting relevant frameworks. Reference established information security governance frameworks, e.g., ISO 27001, NIST CSF for best practices. 5. Communicating and obtaining buy-in. Present the proposed governance approach to relevant stakeholders and senior management for approval. 6. Implementing and monitoring. Ensure the chosen governance approach is implemented effectively and continuously monitored for effectiveness. Question 5. The efficiency study reveals that the IT security team has identified a significant number of vulnerabilities across the organization's network, ranging from low to critical severity. The team has limited resources for immediate remediation and is under pressure to demonstrate a tangible improvement in the organization's security posture within the next quarter. The CISM is tasked with developing a strategy to address these vulnerabilities effectively and efficiently. Which of the following strategies best balances remediation efforts with operational continuity and regulatory compliance? Option A. Defer all remediation efforts until a comprehensive, organization-wide vulnerability management program with dedicated resources can be established, as any partial effort may be insufficient. Option B. Implement a phased remediation plan, prioritizing vulnerabilities on critical business systems and those with known active exploits, while engaging system owners to schedule downtime for less critical systems. Option C. Focus exclusively on remediating vulnerabilities with the highest CVSS scores, irrespective of the asset's business criticality or the likelihood of exploitation in the organization's specific threat landscape. Option D. Immediately deploy automated patching solutions to address all identified vulnerabilities across the entire network, regardless of system criticality or potential impact on operations. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased remediation plan, prioritizing vulnerabilities on critical business systems and those with known active exploits, while engaging system owners to schedule downtime for less critical systems. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in information security management, balancing the need for comprehensive vulnerability assessment with resource constraints and the potential for operational disruption. The CISM professional must navigate the complexities of prioritizing vulnerabilities, understanding the impact of remediation efforts, and ensuring compliance with relevant regulations without compromising business operations. The pressure to demonstrate immediate ROI on security investments further complicates decision-making, requiring a strategic approach that aligns security objectives with business goals. Correct approach analysis. The most effective approach involves a phased implementation of vulnerability assessment and remediation, prioritizing critical assets and high-risk vulnerabilities. This aligns with best practices for risk management, which dictate that resources should be allocated to address the most significant threats first. By focusing on critical systems and known exploitable vulnerabilities, the organization can achieve a measurable reduction in its attack surface and demonstrate progress to stakeholders. This approach also allows for iterative improvement, incorporating lessons learned from each phase into subsequent assessments and remediation efforts. From a regulatory perspective, this demonstrates a commitment to due diligence and a proactive stance in managing information security risks, which is often a requirement under frameworks like NIST, assuming U.S. jurisdiction for CISM exam context. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately attempt to patch all identified vulnerabilities across all systems simultaneously. This is often infeasible due to resource limitations and the high risk of introducing new issues, causing system downtime, which can lead to regulatory noncompliance if critical services are disrupted. Another incorrect approach is to solely focus on vulnerabilities with the highest CVSS scores without considering the asset's criticality or the likelihood of exploitation in the organization's specific environment. This can lead to misallocation of resources, addressing minor issues on non-critical systems while leaving high-value assets exposed. Furthermore, neglecting to involve system owners and business unit managers in the prioritization and remediation process is a significant ethical and professional failing. This lack of collaboration can lead to resistance, incomplete remediation, and a failure to understand the business impact of security decisions, potentially violating principles of good governance and accountability. Professional reasoning. A CISM professional should employ a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves 1. Understanding the business context and critical assets. 2. Conducting a thorough vulnerability assessment to identify potential weaknesses. 3. Prioritizing vulnerabilities based on a combination of severity e.g., CVSS score, exploitability, and the criticality of the affected asset. 4. Developing a remediation plan that considers resource availability, potential business impact, and regulatory requirements. 5. Communicating effectively with stakeholders, including management, IT operations, and business unit leaders, to gain buy-in and ensure coordinated efforts. 6. Continuously monitoring and re-evaluating the security posture. Question 6. Process analysis reveals that the organization's information security program lacks clear accountability and consistent execution of security tasks across different departments. The CISM is tasked with rectifying this situation by establishing a robust framework for defining and assigning information security roles and responsibilities. Which of the following approaches best addresses this implementation challenge while ensuring compliance and operational effectiveness? Option A. Create a highly detailed and complex set of job descriptions for every potential security-related task, ensuring exhaustive documentation even if it leads to administrative overhead. Option B. Develop and implement a formal, documented framework for information security roles and responsibilities, integrated with the organization's governance structure, clearly delineating duties, authorities, and reporting lines for all personnel involved. Option C. Rely on informal, ad hoc assignments of security duties as they arise, trusting that individuals will understand their obligations based on their existing IT roles. Option D. Assign all information security responsibilities exclusively to the IT department, assuming they have the necessary expertise and capacity to manage all security-related tasks. The correct answer is B. Develop and implement a formal documented framework for information security roles and responsibilities, integrated with the organization's governance structure, clearly delineating duties, authorities, and reporting lines for all personnel involved. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in information security, effectively defining and assigning roles and responsibilities. The challenge lies in ensuring clarity, accountability, and alignment with business objectives while adhering to regulatory requirements. Without a clear framework, there's a high risk of security gaps, duplicated efforts, or conflicting actions, all of which can lead to non-compliance and increased risk. The CISM role is to bridge the gap between technical security controls and business operations, requiring a strategic approach to governance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves establishing a formal, documented framework for information security roles and responsibilities that is integrated with the organization's overall governance structure. This framework should clearly delineate duties, authorities, and reporting lines for all personnel involved in information security, from executive leadership to operational staff. This aligns with CISM responsibility to ensure that information security is managed as a strategic business enabler. Such a framework supports accountability, facilitates effective risk management, and is crucial for demonstrating compliance with various regulatory mandates that require clear ownership of security functions. For instance, in the U.S., frameworks like NIST Cybersecurity Framework and regulations such as HIPAA for healthcare or SOX for financial reporting implicitly or explicitly require defined roles for data protection and security oversight. Establishing these roles ensures that individuals understand their obligations, which is a cornerstone of a robust security program. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to rely on informal, ad hoc assignments of security duties. This creates ambiguity, making it difficult to assign accountability when incidents occur and increasing the likelihood of critical tasks being overlooked. This directly violates the principle of clear governance and can lead to regulatory noncompliance, as many regulations require demonstrable oversight and defined responsibilities. Another incorrect approach is to assign all information security responsibilities solely to the IT department, without broader organizational input or executive sponsorship. IT plays a critical role. Information security is an organizational responsibility that impacts all business units. This siloed approach can lead to a lack of business context in security decisions and can alienate other departments, hindering adoption of security policies and procedures. Ethically, it fails to recognize that all employees have a role in protecting information. A third incorrect approach is to create overly complex and bureaucratic role definitions that stifle operational efficiency and create confusion. While documentation is important, the goal is to enable effective security practices, not to create administrative burdens. Overly complex structures can lead to individuals not understanding their actual responsibilities or feeling disempowered, ultimately weakening the security posture and potentially leading to compliance issues due to a lack of practical implementation. Professional reasoning. When defining roles and responsibilities for information security, a CISM should adopt a structured, business-aligned approach. This involves 1. Understanding the organization's strategic objectives and risk appetite. 2. Identifying all key stakeholders and their involvement in information security. 3. Developing a RASI responsible, accountable, consulted, informed matrix or similar tool to clarify duties. 4. Documenting these roles and responsibilities in a formal policy or charter. 5. Ensuring executive sponsorship and buy-in for the defined structure. 6. regularly reviewing and updating roles as the organization and threat landscape evolve. This systematic process ensures that information security is effectively governed, resourced, and integrated into the business, thereby meeting both operational and regulatory requirements. Question 7. Governance review demonstrates that a critical business application is exposed to a high likelihood of data exfiltration due to an unpatched legacy component. The estimated cost to fully patch or replace the component significantly exceeds the allocated budget for the current fiscal year. The potential impact of a successful exfiltration includes substantial financial penalties, reputational damage, and disruption to operations. The organization's risk appetite statement indicates a low tolerance for risks that could lead to significant financial loss or regulatory noncompliance. What is the most appropriate risk response strategy in this situation? Option A. Accept the risk and continue operations as is, with no additional controls or monitoring, as the cost of mitigation is too high. Option B. Avoid the risk by decommissioning the critical business application entirely, even though it is essential for core business functions. Option C. Immediately halt all operations of the critical business application until the legacy component can be fully patched or replaced, regardless of budget constraints. Option D. Purchase cyber insurance to cover potential financial losses and reputational damage, while implementing enhanced monitoring and incident response procedures for the affected application. The correct answer is D. Purchase cyber insurance to cover potential financial losses and reputational damage, while implementing enhanced monitoring and incident response procedures for the affected application. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in information security management, balancing risk appetite with the need for robust controls. The organization has identified a significant risk, but the cost of a full mitigation strategy is prohibitive. The challenge lies in selecting a risk response that is both effective in managing the risk to an acceptable level and economically viable, while remaining compliant with relevant governance frameworks and ethical obligations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it acknowledges the identified risk and implements a strategy that reduces its impact and likelihood to a level the organization can tolerate, without incurring disproportionate costs. This aligns with the CISM role in ensuring that risk management activities are aligned with business objectives and risk appetite. Specifically, by transferring a portion of the financial impact through insurance, the organization is not ignoring the risk, but is actively managing its potential consequences. This demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to protecting organizational assets and reputation, which are core tenets of information security governance. Implementing a full mitigation strategy without considering cost-effectiveness would be a regulatory or ethical failure, could lead to misallocation of resources, potentially leaving other critical risks inadequately addressed. Accepting the risk without any compensating controls or a clear understanding of the potential impact would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It demonstrates a disregard for the organization's security posture and a potential breach of fiduciary duty to stakeholders. Avoiding the risk entirely might be impossible or impractical, and if not pursued with a clear understanding of the implications, it could lead to a false sense of security. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that involves 1. Accurately identifying and assessing risks. 2. Understanding the organization's risk appetite and tolerance. 3. Evaluating the cost-benefit of various response strategies. 4. Considering the impact on business objectives. And 5. Documenting the chosen strategy and its rationale. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with the organization's overall strategy and governance requirements. Question 8. The assessment process reveals significant gaps in the organization's adherence to the specified relevant U.S. regulatory framework, e.g., HIPAA, PCI DSS, SOX, GDPR if applicable to U.S. operations, etc. Requirements related to data handling and access controls. As the CISM, what is the most appropriate next step to develop and implement a corrective action plan? Option A. Immediately implement a comprehensive set of new technical controls and update all relevant policies and procedures across the entire organization to address all identified gaps. Option B. Document the findings and inform the relevant department heads, deferring any immediate action until budget allocations for the next fiscal year are confirmed. Option C. Focus on implementing new technological solutions that automate data handling and access control, assuming that technical fixes will resolve the majority of the compliance issues. Option D. Conduct a detailed risk assessment to prioritize the identified gaps based on their potential impact and likelihood of occurrence, and then develop a phased remediation plan involving relevant stakeholders. The correct answer is A. Immediately implement a comprehensive set of new technical controls and update all relevant policies and procedures across the entire organization to address all identified gaps. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in information security management, balancing the need for robust compliance with operational realities and resource constraints. The CISM role is to ensure that compliance programs are not merely theoretical, but are practical, effective, and integrated into the organization's culture and processes. The difficulty lies in identifying the most appropriate method to address identified gaps without causing undue disruption or compromising security objectives, all while adhering to the specific regulatory framework relevant to the exam's jurisdiction. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a systematic, risk-based methodology. It prioritizes remediation efforts based on the severity of the compliance gap and its potential impact on the organization's security posture and legal standing within the specified regulatory framework. This aligns with best practices in information security governance, which mandate a proactive and prioritized response to identified risks. By engaging relevant stakeholders and developing a phased implementation plan, CISM ensures that resources are allocated efficiently and that the compliance program evolves effectively to meet ongoing regulatory demands and protect organizational assets. This approach demonstrates a mature understanding of risk management and strategic program development, essential for CISM certification. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach fails by immediately implementing a broad, sweeping set of changes without a thorough risk assessment. This can lead to inefficient use of resources, unnecessary disruption to business operations, and potential resistance from staff. It neglects the principle of proportionality in compliance, which is often implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory frameworks that expect a risk-informed approach. Another incorrect approach is to defer action indefinitely, citing resource limitations, without proposing concrete solutions or seeking management buy-in for necessary investments. This represents a failure in leadership and accountability, potentially exposing the organization to significant legal and financial penalties for non-compliance. It also demonstrates a lack of understanding of the CISM responsibility to advocate for adequate resources to maintain an effective security and compliance program. A third incorrect approach involves focusing solely on technical solutions without considering the human and procedural elements of compliance. Compliance is a multifaceted issue that requires changes in behavior, policies, and processes, not just technology. Ignoring these aspects leads to a superficial fix that is unlikely to achieve sustainable compliance and may create new vulnerabilities. This approach overlooks the importance of a holistic compliance program, which is a cornerstone of effective information security management. Professional reasoning. When faced with compliance gaps, a CISM should employ a structured decision-making process. This begins with a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework. Next, conduct a risk assessment to quantify the potential impact of each identified gap. Based on this assessment, prioritize remediation activities. Develop a clear action plan, including timelines, resource requirements, and responsible parties. Crucially, communicate the findings and proposed solutions to senior management to secure necessary support and resources. Continuous monitoring and review are essential to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of the compliance program. Question 9. Benchmark analysis indicates that an organization is seeking to enhance its information security governance. The CISM is tasked with recommending a framework, considering the organization operates within a jurisdiction with stringent data protection laws and a diverse range of business units. Which approach to framework selection would be most professionally sound and compliant? Option A. Choose the framework that is most widely adopted globally, assuming its broad applicability will automatically satisfy local regulatory demands and diverse business unit requirements. Option B. Adopt a framework that is primarily focused on technical security controls, as this is the most critical aspect of information security governance in the current threat landscape. Option C. Select a framework that offers comprehensive controls and a well-defined implementation roadmap, ensuring it can be tailored to address the specific regulatory requirements and the varied operational needs of different business units. Option D. Prioritize a framework known for its minimal implementation effort and low cost, focusing on achieving a baseline level of compliance without extensive customization. Correct answer is C. Select a framework that offers comprehensive controls and a well-defined implementation roadmap, ensuring it can be tailored to address the specific regulatory requirements and the varied operational needs of different business units. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge for information security managers, selecting and implementing a governance framework that aligns with organizational objectives and regulatory requirements. The difficulty lies in understanding the nuances of different frameworks, their strengths and weaknesses, and how they map to specific business needs and compliance obligations. A critical judgment is required to ensure the chosen framework not only addresses security risks, but also supports business operations and is sustainable in the long term. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the organization's context before selecting a framework. This involves assessing current maturity, identifying key business drivers, and understanding the specific regulatory landscape. By aligning the framework with these factors, the organization can ensure that security governance is integrated into business processes rather than being an add-on. This proactive and context-aware selection process is crucial for achieving effective risk management and demonstrating compliance with relevant regulations, such as those governing data privacy and information protection within the specified jurisdiction. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the perceived prestige or widespread adoption of a framework without considering organizational fit is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to a framework that is overly complex, difficult to implement, or fails to address the organization's unique risks and compliance needs. Such an approach risks significant regulatory noncompliance, as it may not adequately cover mandated controls or reporting requirements. Ethically, it represents a failure to act in the best interest of the organization by not selecting the most effective solution. Another incorrect approach, which prioritizes a framework based on its perceived ease of implementation or minimal cost, is also professionally unsound. While efficiency is important, compromising on the effectiveness of a governance framework to save resources can lead to greater long-term costs due to security breaches, regulatory fines, and reputational damage. This approach demonstrates a lack of strategic thinking and a failure to appreciate the foundational role of governance in information security. It can result in a framework that is superficial and does not provide the necessary assurance to stakeholders or regulators. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a structured assessment of organizational needs, risk appetite, and regulatory obligations. This includes engaging with stakeholders across the business to understand their concerns and requirements. A comparative analysis of potential frameworks, evaluating their alignment with these identified needs, is essential. The decision should be data-driven, considering the framework's ability to support continuous improvement, provide measurable outcomes, and facilitate effective communication of security posture to management and regulatory bodies. Question 10. Cost-benefit analysis shows that investing in a robust information security program is essential for protecting critical business operations and sensitive data. To effectively demonstrate the value of the security program and guide future investments, the CISM needs to develop and implement key performance indicators, KPI. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of effective KPI development for information security within a business context? Option A. Develop KPIs based on subjective assessments of security team morale and perceived effectiveness, as this captures the human element of security. Option B. Establish KPIs that measure the reduction in the likelihood and impact of business disruptions caused by security incidents, directly correlating security performance with business continuity and financial stability. Option C. Prioritize KPIs that measure the percentage of systems that are fully patched and compliant with technical security baselines, as this indicates a strong technical security posture. Option D. Focus on KPIs that track the total number of security incidents detected, regardless of their severity or business impact, to demonstrate the activity level of the security operations team. The correct answer is B. Establish KPIs that measure the reduction in the likelihood and impact of business disruptions caused by security incidents, directly correlating security performance with business continuity and financial stability. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in information security management, aligning security metrics with business objectives and demonstrating value. The difficulty lies in translating the abstract concept of security into tangible, measurable outcomes that resonate with stakeholders and justify investment. A key aspect of this is selecting key performance indicators, KPI, that are not only technically sound, but also strategically relevant and actionable. The CISM role is to bridge the gap between technical security controls and business impact, ensuring that security efforts contribute to the organization's overall goals. The correct approach focuses on developing KPIs that are directly linked to business objectives and are measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound smart. This ensures that the information security program is not viewed as a cost center, but as a strategic enabler. By demonstrating how security contributes to risk reduction, operational efficiency, or customer trust, the CISM can effectively advocate for resources and gain buy-in from leadership. This aligns with the CISM responsibility to manage and govern information security programs, which inherently requires demonstrating effectiveness and value to the organization. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the number of security incidents without considering their business impact fails to demonstrate the effectiveness of security controls in preventing significant losses or disruption. This can lead to a perception that security is either overly aggressive or not effective enough, depending on the context. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes technical metrics without clear business relevance, such as the percentage of systems patched, might be technically accurate but doesn't explain why patching is important in terms of business risk. This can lead to misallocation of resources and a lack of understanding from non-technical stakeholders. An approach that relies on subjective assessments or anecdotal evidence lacks the rigor required for effective performance management and can be challenged easily, undermining the credibility of the information security function. Professionals should approach KPI development by first understanding the organization's strategic goals and risk appetite. They should then identify key areas where information security can impact these goals, such as protecting critical assets, ensuring business continuity, or maintaining regulatory compliance. KPIs should be designed to measure progress in these areas, with clear definitions of what constitutes success and how data will be collected and reported. Regular review and refinement of KPIs are essential to ensure their continued relevance and effectiveness. Question 11. System analysis indicates that a significant cost-saving initiative is being proposed by the Finance Department, which would involve decommissioning a critical security monitoring tool. The Finance Department argues that the tool is expensive and its functionality can be partially replicated by existing, less specialized systems, leading to substantial annual savings. As the CISM, you have identified that while some overlap exists, the proposed decommissioning would create a significant gap in real-time threat detection and incident response capabilities, increasing the organization's exposure to sophisticated cyber threats. The Finance Department is pressuring for a swift decision to meet budgetary targets. Option A. Escalate the issue to the Information Security Steering Committee, presenting a detailed risk assessment of the proposed decommissioning, outlining the potential security gaps and their business impact, and recommending a course of action that balances cost considerations with essential security requirements. Option B. Reject the proposal outright, citing the critical nature of the security tool and refusing to entertain any changes that could potentially weaken the organization's security posture, regardless of cost implications. Option C. Agree to the decommissioning, but propose a phased approach where the tool is gradually phased out over a longer period, allowing for the development of alternative solutions, even if this means incurring additional costs in the short term to maintain security. Option D. Immediately approve the decommissioning to support the cost-saving initiative, with a commitment to monitor the situation closely and address any emerging security issues reactively. The correct answer is D. Immediately approve the decommissioning to support the cost-saving initiative, with a commitment to monitor the situation closely and address any emerging security issues reactively. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in information security management where business objectives, particularly cost reduction, directly conflict with the established security controls and the principles of an information security management system, ISMS. The challenge lies in balancing the need for operational efficiency and financial prudence with the non-negotiable requirement to maintain an adequate level of information security to protect organizational assets and comply with relevant regulations. A CISM professional must navigate this conflict by adhering to established governance frameworks and risk management principles, rather than making unilateral decisions that could compromise security. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, risk-based decision-making process that aligns with ISM's principles and regulatory expectations. By escalating the issue to the steering committee, the CISM ensures that the decision is made at the appropriate governance level, considering all business impacts, not just cost. This aligns with the CISM role as a trusted advisor and facilitator of secure business operation. It upholds the integrity of the ISMs by ensuring that changes are evaluated against security requirements and that any deviations are formally approved based on a thorough risk assessment. This approach also implicitly supports the principle of due diligence, demonstrating a commitment to protecting information assets. An incorrect approach that bypasses established governance and risk assessment processes is professionally unacceptable. For instance, immediately agreeing to the proposed cost-saving measure without a proper impact analysis would represent a failure to uphold the ISM's integrity and a potential violation of regulatory requirements that mandate adequate security controls. This could lead to increased vulnerability to threats, data breaches, and subsequent regulatory penalties. Another incorrect approach, such as refusing to consider any cost-saving measures, demonstrates inflexibility and a lack of understanding of business realities, potentially alienating stakeholders and undermining the CISM credibility. This approach fails to acknowledge that security controls should be proportionate to risk and that optimization is a valid business objective, provided it doesn't introduce unacceptable risk. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the proposed change and its direct implications for security controls. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment to quantify the potential impact of the proposed change on information security. 3. Evaluating the proposed change against the organization's ISM's policies, procedures, and risk appetite. 4. Communicating the findings of the risk assessment and the potential security implications to relevant stakeholders, including business unit managers and the ISM steering committee. 5. Recommending a course of action that balances business needs with security requirements, proposing alternative solutions if necessary. 6. Ensuring that any approved changes are documented and that the ISMs is updated accordingly. Question 12. Benchmark analysis indicates that the current risk reporting process for executive management is perceived as overly technical and lacking strategic relevance. As the CISM, you are tasked with improving this process to ensure more effective oversight and decision-making. Which of the following approaches best addresses this challenge? Option A. Present aggregated, trend-based risk information that directly correlates with business objectives and strategic priorities, highlighting key risk indicators, CRI, that have moved beyond acceptable thresholds and providing context on their business impact. Option B. Submit a comprehensive report listing every identified risk, regardless of its current likelihood, impact, or mitigation status, to ensure complete transparency. Option C. Focus solely on the raw number of security incidents that occurred during the reporting period, without providing analysis of root causes or business impact. Option D. Provide a detailed report of all identified technical vulnerabilities, including their severity scores and affected systems, without further aggregation or business impact analysis. The correct answer is A. Present aggregated, trend-based risk information that directly correlates with business objectives and strategic priorities, highlighting key risk indicators, CRI, that have moved beyond acceptable thresholds and providing context on their business impact. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in risk management, balancing the need for timely and actionable risk reporting with the potential for overwhelming stakeholders with excessive detail. The CISM professional must discern the appropriate level of detail and focus for executive management, ensuring that the information provided is relevant to strategic decision-making and does not obscure critical insights with noise. The challenge lies in synthesizing complex technical risk data into a format that is understandable and actionable for a non-technical audience, while still maintaining accuracy and completeness. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on presenting aggregated, trend-based risk information that directly correlates with business objectives and strategic priorities. This aligns with CISM best practices and regulatory expectations for effective risk oversight. By highlighting key risk indicators, CRI, that have moved beyond acceptable thresholds and providing context on their business impact, the CISM demonstrates proactive risk management. This approach ensures that executives receive concise, relevant information that enables informed decision-making, resource allocation, and strategic adjustments. It reflects a mature risk reporting program that supports governance and accountability, as often mandated by frameworks like NIST or ISO 27001, which emphasize risk communication to relevant stakeholders. Incorrect approaches analysis. Presenting raw, unaggregated technical vulnerability data fails to translate technical findings into business risk, making it difficult for executives to understand the implications. This approach neglects the CISM responsibility to bridge the gap between technical security and business strategy, potentially leading to misprioritization or inaction. It also risks overwhelming stakeholders with data that lacks context or actionable insights, violating principles of effective communication and governance. Reporting on all identified risks, regardless of their current impact or likelihood, creates information overload. This approach dilutes the focus on the most critical risks and can lead to executive fatigue, where important issues are overlooked due to the sheer volume of information. It is inefficient and does not demonstrate effective risk prioritization, a core tenet of risk management. Focusing solely on the number of security incidents without analyzing their root causes or business impact provides an incomplete picture. While incident volume is a metric, it doesn't explain the why or the so what for the business. This approach fails to identify systemic issues or trends that require strategic intervention, hindering the ability to implement preventative measures and demonstrate the effectiveness of security controls. It is a reactive rather than a proactive reporting strategy. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes the audience and purpose of the risk report. This involves understanding the strategic objectives of the organization and tailoring risk reporting to align with those objectives. A structured approach would include 1. Identifying key risk indicators, CRI, that directly map to business impact and strategic goals. 2. Aggregating and analyzing technical data to derive meaningful risk insights. 3. Contextualizing risk information with business impact and potential financial or operational consequences. 4. Presenting findings in a concise, visual, and actionable format suitable for executive consumption. 5. Establishing a regular reporting cadence and feedback loop to ensure the reporting remains relevant and effective. This process ensures that risk reporting is not merely an exercise in data dissemination, but a critical component of organizational governance and strategic decision-making. Question 13. Assessment of the most appropriate action for a CISM when a new customer-facing product, which will collect and process significant amounts of personal data, is nearing its launch date, and the development team has not yet formally assessed its compliance with data privacy regulations. Option A. Rely on the general data privacy advice previously provided by the legal department to the company. Option B. Proceed with the launch as scheduled and address any compliance issues that arise post-launch. Option C. Halt the product launch until a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) is completed and all identified risks are mitigated. Option D. Implement standard security controls that are generally applied to all new products, without a specific assessment for this product's data processing activities. Correct answer is B. Proceed with the launch as scheduled and address any compliance issues that arise post-launch. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate operational needs of a new product launch with the ongoing obligation to comply with data privacy regulations. The pressure to meet business deadlines can often lead to shortcuts that inadvertently create compliance risks. The CISM role is to ensure that security and compliance are integrated into the development lifecycle, not treated as an afterthought. This requires proactive engagement with business units and a thorough understanding of applicable legal and regulatory frameworks. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a data protection impact assessment (DPIA) before the product launch is the best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of data protection by design and by default, as mandated by regulations like the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, which is a common framework tested in CISM. A DPA systematically identifies and mitigates privacy risks associated with processing personal data. It ensures that the organization has considered the potential impact on individuals' privacy rights and has put in place appropriate safeguards. This proactive approach demonstrates a commitment to compliance and responsible data handling, minimizing the likelihood of future regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Incorrect approaches analysis. Failing to conduct any formal risk assessment before launch is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for data privacy principles and potentially violates legal obligations to protect personal data. This approach prioritizes speed over responsibility, exposing the organization to substantial legal liabilities and loss of customer trust. Relying solely on the legal department's general advice without a specific assessment of the product's data processing activities is insufficient. While legal counsel provides guidance, they may not have the in-depth technical understanding of how data is collected, processed, and stored by the new product. This can lead to overlooking specific compliance requirements related to data handling, consent mechanisms, or data subject rights. Implementing security controls only after the product has been launched and issues are reported is a reactive and inadequate approach. It signifies a failure to adhere to the principle of data protection by design. This approach not only increases the risk of data breaches and noncompliance, but also incurs higher remediation costs and potential regulatory fines. It suggests a lack of proactive risk management and a failure to embed security and privacy into the product development lifecycle. Professional reasoning. When faced with a new product launch that involves personal data, a CISM should follow a structured risk management process. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable legal and regulatory requirements related to data privacy and security. 2. Assessing the specific data processing activities the new product will undertake. 3. Conducting a thorough risk assessment, such as a DPA, to identify potential privacy and security risks. 4. Developing and implementing appropriate controls and safeguards to mitigate identified risks. 5. Obtaining necessary approvals and ensuring ongoing monitoring and compliance. This systematic approach ensures that compliance is integrated into the business process from the outset, rather than being an add-on. Question 14. Comparative studies suggest that optimizing the business impact analysis (BIA) process for a financial services organization operating under U.S. regulatory oversight requires a strategic approach. Which of the following methodologies best aligns with achieving this optimization while ensuring regulatory compliance and operational resilience? Option A. Delegating the entire BIA process to a third-party vendor with minimal involvement from internal business unit leaders, focusing solely on the vendor's report for compliance purposes. Option B. Implementing an iterative BIA process that begins with identifying and prioritizing critical business functions, followed by progressively detailed analysis of their dependencies, impacts, and recovery requirements, with continuous stakeholder validation. Option C. Relying primarily on publicly available industry BIA templates and generic risk assessments, without significant customization to the organization's unique operational environment and specific regulatory obligations. Option D. Conducting a single, comprehensive data collection exercise across all business units to capture every conceivable operational detail and potential impact, assuming this exhaustive approach will yield the most robust results. The correct answer is B. Implementing an iterative BIA process that begins with identifying and prioritizing critical business functions, followed by progressively detailed analysis of their dependencies, impacts, and recovery requirements, with continuous stakeholder validation. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because optimizing a business impact analysis (BIA) process requires balancing thoroughness with efficiency, ensuring that critical business functions are identified and their impacts understood without creating an overly burdensome or time-consuming exercise. The CISM professional must navigate the inherent tension between comprehensive data gathering and the practical constraints of resources and time, all while adhering to relevant regulatory frameworks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it focuses on iterative refinement and stakeholder engagement, which are fundamental to effective BIA. By prioritizing critical functions and progressively deepening the analysis, the organization can ensure that resources are allocated to the most impactful areas first. This aligns with the principles of risk management and business continuity planning, which are often mandated or strongly recommended by regulatory bodies. For instance, in the U.S., frameworks like NIST SB 800-34 emphasize a phased approach to BIA, starting with identification and prioritization. This method ensures that the BIA remains a living document, adaptable to changing business needs and threats, thereby supporting ongoing compliance and resilience. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on a one-time, exhaustive data collection without subsequent validation or refinement fails to acknowledge the dynamic nature of business operations and the evolving threat landscape. This can lead to a BIA that is quickly outdated, providing inaccurate information for recovery planning, and potentially causing non-compliance with regulations that require up-to-date risk assessments. Another incorrect approach that relies on generic industry benchmarks without specific organizational context risks misidentifying critical functions or underestimating their unique dependencies and impacts. This can result in inadequate recovery strategies and a failure to meet regulatory requirements for tailored business continuity plans. Furthermore, an approach that bypasses key business unit involvement in the BIA process undermines the accuracy and buy-in necessary for effective implementation. This can lead to a BIA that does not reflect the true operational realities, potentially violating ethical obligations to protect business assets and customer data, and failing to meet regulatory expectations for comprehensive risk assessment. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the organization's strategic objectives and regulatory obligations. This involves clearly defining the scope and objectives of the BIA. Next, a phased approach should be adopted, starting with high-level identification of critical functions and progressively drilling down into dependencies and impacts. Continuous stakeholder engagement is crucial throughout the process to ensure accuracy, relevance, and buy-in. Finally, the BIA should be treated as a living document, subject to regular review and updates to maintain its effectiveness and compliance. Question 15. The efficiency study reveals that the current information security program lacks strategic alignment and adequate resource allocation, leading to a reactive approach to emerging threats. To address this, the Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, is tasked with establishing an Information Security Steering Committee. Which of the following approaches best positions this committee for success in driving strategic security initiatives and ensuring appropriate oversight? Option A. Establish the committee with a broad representation of senior business leaders and IT executives, providing it with a clear charter to review and approve security strategies, policies, and significant resource allocations. Option B. Create an advisory group comprising department heads to provide input to the CISO on security concerns within their respective areas, with no formal decision-making authority. Option C. Form the committee with the CISO and key technical security personnel, granting them the authority to approve all security policy changes and technology procurements. Option D. Delegate the committee's responsibilities to the IT director, who will then report security status updates to the executive leadership team on a quarterly basis. The correct answer is C. Form the committee with the CISO and key technical security personnel, granting them the authority to approve all security policy changes and technology procurements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in information security management, establishing effective governance for security initiatives. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that the Information Security Steering Committee has the appropriate authority, representation, and mandate to influence strategic decisions and resource allocation. Without these elements, the committee risks becoming a perfunctory body with little actual impact, undermining the organization's ability to manage information security risks effectively. The challenge is amplified by the need to balance the technical expertise of the CISO with the business objectives and strategic direction set by senior leadership. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves establishing the Information Security Steering Committee with a clear charter, defined membership that includes senior business and IT leaders, and explicit authority to review and approve security strategies, policies, and significant investments. This aligns with best practices for information security governance, such as those outlined by ISACA for the CISM certification. This approach ensures that security is integrated into business strategy, that decisions are made with a holistic understanding of risk and business impact, and that necessary resources are allocated. The committee's authority to approve strategic direction and resource allocation is crucial for its effectiveness, ensuring that security initiatives are not merely technical recommendations, but are prioritized and funded as business imperatives. This fosters accountability and ensures that the organization's risk appetite is appropriately managed. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to establish the committee with only technical staff and the CISO, excluding senior business leaders. This creates a governance gap, as security decisions would be made without adequate input on business objectives, risk appetite, or strategic priorities. This failure to integrate security with business strategy is a significant governance and ethical lapse, potentially leading to misaligned security investments and an inability to effectively manage enterprise-wide risks. Another incorrect approach is to grant the committee only advisory powers without the authority to approve strategies or resource allocation. This renders the committee ineffective, as its recommendations can be easily ignored by those with decision-making power. This undermines the principle of accountability for information security and can lead to a reactive rather than proactive security posture, failing to meet the organization's duty of care. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the committee's responsibilities entirely to the IT department without executive sponsorship. This limits the committee's influence and visibility, preventing it from effectively championing security across the entire organization and securing the necessary buy-in and resources from business units. This is a failure of leadership and governance, as information security is an enterprise-wide responsibility. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach the establishment of an information security steering committee by first understanding the organization's strategic objectives and risk appetite. The committee's charter should clearly define its purpose, scope, responsibilities, and authority, ensuring alignment with these organizational goals. Membership should be carefully selected to include key stakeholders from both business and IT functions, ensuring diverse perspectives and decision-making authority. Regular reporting and communication mechanisms should be established to maintain transparency and accountability. The decision-making process should prioritize risk-based approaches, ensuring that security investments are justified by their ability to mitigate identified risks and support business objectives. Question 16. To address the challenge of prioritizing information security risks within a medium-sized enterprise that has limited resources for extensive quantitative analysis, which approach to risk likelihood and impact analysis would be most appropriate for a CISM to recommend? Option A. An approach that exclusively focuses on identifying and analyzing risks with the highest potential financial loss, regardless of their likelihood. Option B. A methodology that prioritizes only those risks with a high likelihood of occurrence, irrespective of their potential impact. Option C. A purely subjective approach where senior management's intuition and anecdotal evidence are used to assign likelihood and impact ratings. Option D. A hybrid approach combining qualitative assessments for likelihood and impact with a structured framework for scenario-based impact analysis, focusing on business process disruption and reputational damage. The correct answer is D. A hybrid approach combining qualitative assessments for likelihood and impact with a structured framework for scenario-based impact analysis, focusing on business process disruption and reputational damage. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a CISM to balance the need for robust risk assessment with the practical constraints of resource availability and the organization's risk appetite. The core difficulty lies in selecting a risk analysis methodology that is both effective in identifying and prioritizing risks and feasible to implement within the given context. Careful judgment is required to avoid overanalysis that leads to paralysis or underanalysis that leaves the organization exposed. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it aligns with the fundamental principles of risk management as outlined in industry standards and best practices, which are implicitly expected within the CISM framework. Specifically, it emphasizes a structured, repeatable process that considers both the qualitative and quantitative aspects of risk where appropriate, leading to a more informed and defensible risk treatment plan. This approach facilitates clear communication of risk to stakeholders and supports evidence-based decision-making, which is crucial for demonstrating due diligence and accountability. An incorrect approach that relies solely on subjective expert opinion without any attempt at structured analysis or data gathering fails to provide a consistent or auditable basis for risk assessment. This can lead to biases, inconsistent prioritization, and an inability to demonstrate the rationale behind risk decisions to auditors or regulators. Ethically, it can result in a failure to adequately protect organizational assets and sensitive information due to an incomplete or flawed understanding of potential threats and vulnerabilities. Another incorrect approach that focuses exclusively on high-impact, low-likelihood events, while seemingly prudent, can neglect significant risks that, while individually less impactful, could collectively pose a substantial threat. This narrow focus can lead to misallocation of resources, leaving the organization vulnerable to a broader spectrum of threats. It also fails to meet the comprehensive risk assessment expectations inherent in information security management. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes risks solely based on their potential financial impact, without considering other critical factors like reputational damage, regulatory noncompliance, or operational disruption, provides an incomplete picture of the overall risk landscape. This can lead to decisions that protect financial assets at the expense of other equally vital organizational interests, potentially leading to severe consequences that extend beyond monetary loss. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves first understanding the organization's objectives, risk appetite, and available resources, then evaluating various risk assessment methodologies against these constraints, considering their strengths and weaknesses. The chosen methodology should be documented, repeatable, and capable of producing actionable insights. Finally, the results of the risk analysis must be communicated effectively to management and stakeholders to support informed risk treatment decisions. Question 17. Process analysis reveals that an organization is seeking to develop a new information security strategy. The CISM is tasked with leading this initiative. Which of the following approaches best aligns with developing a robust and effective information security strategy that supports business objectives and regulatory compliance? Option A. Replicate the information security strategies of leading competitors, assuming their approaches are optimal for all organizations in the sector. Option B. Prioritize the adoption of cutting-edge security technologies identified as industry best practices, regardless of immediate business impact or specific risk assessments. Option C. Focus on implementing security controls that are the most cost-effective, even if they do not fully address the organization's most significant identified risks. Option D. Develop a strategy that directly supports the organization's strategic business objectives and is driven by a comprehensive risk assessment, ensuring alignment with regulatory requirements. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the adoption of cutting-edge security technologies identified as industry best practices, regardless of immediate business impact or specific risk assessments. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in information security strategy development, balancing the need for robust security with business objectives and resource constraints. The CISM role is to ensure the strategy aligns with the organization's risk appetite, regulatory obligations, and strategic goals, rather than simply implementing the most technically advanced solutions. The correct approach demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing a risk-based methodology that directly supports business objectives. This aligns with the CISM responsibility to protect information assets while enabling business operations. Specifically, it adheres to the principle of proportionality, ensuring that security investments are commensurate with identified risks and business value. This approach also implicitly considers the organization's governance framework and its commitment to compliance with relevant regulations, which are foundational to a sound information security strategy. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on adopting the latest technologies without a clear link to business needs or risk assessment fails to demonstrate strategic alignment. This can lead to misallocation of resources, increased complexity, and potentially ineffective security controls that do not address the organization's most critical risks. Ethically, it can be seen as a failure to act in the best interest of the organization by not optimizing resource utilization. Regulatory-wise, it might lead to non-compliance if critical risks are overlooked due to a focus on trendy but irrelevant technologies. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost reduction above all else, even at the expense of necessary security controls, is professionally unsound. directly contravenes the CISM duty to protect information assets and can expose the organization to significant financial, reputational, and legal damage. Such an approach would likely violate regulatory requirements mandating adequate security measures and ethical obligations to safeguard sensitive data. A third incorrect approach that focuses on replicating competitor strategies without understanding the organization's unique context, risk profile, and business objectives is also flawed. While competitive analysis can be informative, a direct copy-paste approach ignores the specific regulatory landscape, internal control environment, and risk tolerance of the organization. This can lead to an ineffective strategy that does not meet the organization's specific needs or comply with its unique regulatory obligations. Professionals should employ a decision-making process that begins with understanding the organization's strategic objectives and risk appetite. This is followed by a comprehensive risk assessment to identify and prioritize threats and vulnerabilities. Security controls and strategies should then be designed and implemented to mitigate these identified risks to an acceptable level, ensuring alignment with business goals and regulatory requirements. Continuous monitoring, evaluation, and adaptation are crucial to maintain the strategy's effectiveness. Question 18. Market research demonstrates that senior management is particularly interested in metrics that highlight positive progress and cost savings within the information security program. You are preparing your quarterly performance report and have identified several key metrics. One set of metrics shows a significant reduction in the number of minor security incidents, which is a positive trend. However, another critical metric, the time to detect and respond to sophisticated, low-frequency threats, has slightly increased due to new, more complex detection systems being implemented. This latter metric, while showing a temporary dip, is crucial for assessing the organization's resilience against advanced attacks. How should you present this information to senior management? Option A. Focus the report primarily on the reduction in minor incidents and the associated cost savings, while briefly mentioning the slight increase in detection and response time for complex threats as a temporary byproduct of system upgrades, without detailing the implications for advanced threat resilience. Option B. Present a balanced report that clearly outlines the reduction in minor incidents and cost savings, alongside a transparent explanation of the increased time to detect and respond to complex threats, including the reasons for this increase and its potential impact on advanced threat resilience, while also highlighting the long-term benefits of the new detection systems. Option C. Provide a qualitative assessment of the security program's overall effectiveness, using anecdotal evidence and subjective observation to convey a sense of progress, and omit specific quantitative metrics that might present a mixed picture. Option D. Emphasize the increase in time to detect and respond to complex threats as the primary focus of the report, detailing the potential risks and recommending immediate, potentially costly, remediation actions, while downplaying the reduction in minor incidents. The correct answer is A. Focus the report primarily on the reduction in minor incidents and the associated cost savings, while briefly mentioning the slight increase in detection and response time for complex threats as a temporary byproduct of system upgrades, without detailing the implications for advanced threat resilience. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in information security management where pressure to present favorable performance metrics conflicts with the need for accurate and transparent reporting. The challenge lies in balancing the organization's desire for positive perception with the CISM professional responsibility to provide objective data that can drive meaningful improvements. Misrepresenting performance can lead to a false sense of security, misallocation of resources, and ultimately increased risk. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it aligns with the core principles of ethical conduct and professional responsibility expected of a CISM. It prioritizes data integrity, transparency, and the use of metrics that genuinely reflect the organization's security posture and its progress towards achieving security objectives. This approach fosters trust with stakeholders, enables informed decision-making, and supports continuous improvement by highlighting areas that require attention. It adheres to the spirit of professional standards that emphasize honesty and accountability in reporting. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on metrics that show improvement, even if they are not the most critical indicators of overall security health, is professionally unacceptable. This constitutes a form of data manipulation or selective reporting, which undermines the credibility of the security program, and the CISM can lead to a failure to address significant risks that are not captured by the chosen favorable metrics, potentially violating the organization's duty to protect its assets and data. This approach also fails to meet the ethical obligation to provide a true and fair view of the security landscape. Another incorrect approach that involves omitting or downplaying negative trends or incidents, even if they are not catastrophic, is also professionally unsound. This creates a misleading picture of security performance and prevents stakeholders from understanding the full scope of risks. It can lead to a lack of necessary investment or corrective actions, thereby increasing the organization's vulnerability. This practice is ethically questionable, as it involves a deliberate omission of relevant information that could impact decision-making. Finally, an approach that relies on subjective assessment rather than objective, measurable data for reporting is inherently flawed. While qualitative insights are valuable, performance measurement in information security requires quantifiable evidence to demonstrate effectiveness and progress. Relying solely on subjective opinions can lead to biased reporting and an inability to track trends or demonstrate return on investment for security initiatives. This approach lacks the rigor expected of professional security management and can be seen as an abdication of the responsibility to provide verifiable performance data. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the organization's security objectives, the relevant stakeholders and their information needs, and the available data sources. A CISM should identify key performance indicators, KPI, that are aligned with these objectives and are measurable, relevant, and actionable. When reporting, it is crucial to present a balanced view, including both positive achievements and areas for improvement. Transparency about the methodology used for measurement and reporting is also essential. If faced with pressure to present a skewed picture, the CISM should professionally articulate the importance of accurate reporting, explain the potential consequences of misrepresentation, and advocate for a data-driven approach that supports genuine risk management and continuous improvement. Question 19. The evaluation methodology shows that a critical security incident has resulted in the unauthorized access and exfiltration of sensitive customer personally identifiable information, PI. As the CISM, you are responsible for overseeing the reporting process to affected individuals and regulatory bodies in the United States. Which of the following actions best aligns with U.S. federal and state data breach notification laws and CISM best practices for incident reporting? Option A. Provide a general notification to affected individuals that a security incident occurred without detailing the specific types of PII compromised or the extent of the breach, to avoid causing undue alarm. Option B. Delay external reporting until all remediation efforts are completed and the system is fully secured, focusing on internal containment and recovery before engaging with external stakeholders. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive internal investigation to fully understand the root cause and impact before any external reporting, prioritizing internal remediation efforts over immediate external communication. Option D. Initiate immediate notification to all affected individuals and relevant state and federal regulatory agencies, providing a clear description of the breach, the types of PII compromised, and the steps being taken to address the incident, while also documenting all actions taken. The correct answer is D. Initiate immediate notification to all affected individuals and relevant state and federal regulatory agencies, providing a clear description of the breach, the types of PII compromised, and the steps being taken to address the incident, while also documenting all actions taken. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a significant data breach has occurred, impacting customer personal information. The challenge lies in navigating the complex reporting requirements under U.S. federal and state regulations, balancing the need for timely notification with the accuracy and completeness of the information provided. The CISM role is to ensure compliance while minimizing reputational damage and legal repercussions. The correct approach involves a thorough, prompt, and transparent reporting process that adheres strictly to the notification timelines and content requirements stipulated by relevant U.S. laws, such as the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, for protected health information, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, for financial institutions, and various state data breach notification laws. This includes identifying affected individuals, the nature of the breach, the data compromised, and steps taken to mitigate harm, all communicated in a clear and understandable manner. This represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the rights and protections of individuals whose data has been compromised, fosters trust, and demonstrates a commitment to regulatory compliance and responsible data stewardship. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on internal documentation without immediate external notification fails to meet the mandatory reporting obligations under U.S. law. This would constitute a significant regulatory failure, potentially leading to substantial fines, legal action, and severe reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that provides incomplete or misleading information to affected parties or regulatory bodies is also a critical failure. This not only violates the spirit of transparency, but also contravenes specific legal requirements for accuracy in breach notifications, leading to further penalties and loss of credibility. A third incorrect approach that delays reporting beyond statutory deadlines, even if the information is eventually accurate, is a direct violation of breach notification laws, which are time-sensitive. This delay can exacerbate harm to individuals and result in penalties for noncompliance. Professionals should approach such situations by first activating the incident response plan, which should include clear protocols for breach notification. This involves a rapid assessment of the breach's scope and impact, identification of all applicable regulatory jurisdictions, federal and state, and consultation with legal counsel to ensure all reporting requirements are met accurately and within the stipulated timeframes. A structured communication plan, developed in advance, should guide the content and delivery of notifications to affected individuals and relevant authorities. Question 20. Consider a scenario where a Certified Information Security Manager, CISM, is tasked with developing and implementing new information security policies for a rapidly growing technology company. The company has a diverse workforce across multiple departments, each with unique operational needs and varying levels of technical expertise. The CISM needs to ensure these policies are comprehensive, enforceable, and foster a strong security culture without hindering innovation or productivity. Which of the following approaches best aligns with developing and implementing effective information security policies in this context? Option A. Engage key stakeholders from each department to collaboratively define policy requirements, pilot the policies in specific areas, and implement them incrementally with ongoing communication and feedback mechanisms. Option B. Develop a comprehensive set of policies based on industry best practices, and then roll them out to all employees with a mandatory training session. Option C. Focus on developing policies for the most critical systems first, assuming other areas will adopt them as needed. Option D. Delegate the policy development to individual department heads, providing them with a template and expecting them to tailor it to their specific needs. The correct answer is B. Develop a comprehensive set of policies based on industry best practices, and then roll them out to all employees with a mandatory training session. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in information security management, balancing the need for comprehensive policy development with the practical realities of organizational resources and stakeholder buy-in. The CISM role requires not just technical expertise, but also strong leadership and communication skills to ensure policies are effective, enforceable, and aligned with business objectives. The challenge lies in navigating diverse stakeholder perspectives, potential resistance to change, and the need to translate complex security requirements into actionable guidelines without stifling innovation or operational efficiency. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a collaborative and iterative process, starting with a clear understanding of the organization's risk appetite and strategic goals. This involves engaging key stakeholders from the outset to ensure policies are relevant, practical, and supported. A phased implementation, coupled with robust training and communication, is crucial for fostering adoption and compliance. This aligns with best practices in governance and risk management, where policies are living documents that require continuous review and adaptation. From a regulatory perspective, this approach ensures that policies are not only documented, but also effectively implemented, which is often a key consideration in audits and compliance assessments. It demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to establishing a strong security culture. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves developing policies in isolation without consulting relevant business units. This leads to policies that are out of touch with operational realities, difficult to implement, and likely to be ignored. This failure can result in non-compliance with internal standards and potentially external regulations, as the implemented controls may not adequately address the risks faced by specific departments. Another incorrect approach is to implement policies without adequate communication or training. This creates confusion, resentment, and a lack of understanding, leading to unintentional violations and a perception that security is an impediment rather than an enabler. Ethically, this approach fails to uphold the responsibility to inform and educate employees about their security obligations. A third incorrect approach is to adopt a one-size-fits-all policy without considering the unique risks and operational context of different departments or systems. This can lead to overly burdensome controls for low-risk areas or insufficient protection for high-risk ones, undermining the overall effectiveness of the security program and potentially leading to regulatory noncompliance if specific industry standards or legal requirements are not met. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based, stakeholder-centric approach to policy development and implementation. This involves 1. Understanding the business context and risk appetite. 2. Identifying and engaging all relevant stakeholders early in the process. 3. Developing policies that are clear, concise, actionable, and aligned with business objectives. 4. Implementing policies through a phased approach with comprehensive communication and training. 5. Establishing mechanisms for ongoing review, feedback, and adaptation. This systematic process ensures that policies are effective, sustainable, and contribute to the organization's overall security posture and compliance objectives.